What? You know what? Just to be safe. Thing you did ended up saving you later. Story 1. Got divorced 11 years ago from a horrible woman when my son was only 7 years old. Once I got my life together and settled in, I tried to get him to visit me as often as I could. Due to work, I had to live in a different state. Every time I tried to make plans to fly him to see me or come see him, she would give me some horrible excuse about some medical thing he had, some event with school, or some emergency as to why he couldn't spend time with me. Or even sometimes she would just tell me to screw off and straight up say no. She knew I didn't live in town and I wasn't going to just show up and see him, so that gave her some power. After the 9th or 10th time of that happening, I said to myself, you know what? Just to be safe, I should keep a record of all this. So I made sure I saved every text message as well as every email conversation between her and I. Over the years, my son started to resent me, thinking I did not want to spend time with him. He became more distant and I was not able to communicate to him what was actually happening. At the age of 15 or 16, he stopped talking to me because he said that his depression was due to me not wanting to see him. I couldn't explain anything to him at all, so I emailed him to apologize and let him have his space. Last year, I was able to get through to him and convince him to let me come see him and spend the summer with me. I had legal visitation to do so and told him that he needed to tell his mother he wanted to spend the summer with me. She tried to come up with an excuse, but he was resilient in asking and told her it was his choice to spend the summer break with me. She wanted to seem like a good person, so she said yes finally. I drove 1,100 miles to go pick him up and take the drive back with me to my state. I cleared it with child services, his mother, his grandparents, and everybody was okay with it. I was going to fly him back in 2 months when his break was over, a week before he started school again. On the drive back, he expressed to me how upset he was with me about not being around in his life and not wanting to see him. We had a difficult conversation and I just let him tell me everything he was feeling. It was hard to hear, but I wanted to know where his headspace and his heart were. So when we stopped the first night at a hotel, I pulled out my laptop and told him I wanted to show him something. I knew it would hurt, but he had to know how much I cared about him and how hard his mother made it for me to see him. So I showed him every message and every email his mother had ever said to me about the lies she told that kept me from seeing him. I also showed him the legal documents from when I hired a lawyer to try to get custody of him and how difficult she made things. I showed him the communication between her and I and how downright mean she used to get to me when we communicated. I showed him the tweets from his now stepdad that were basically calling him a loser and saying how much he didn't like him. I showed him a part of his family that he had no idea existed. Immediately, his attitude towards me changed. We spent the entire summer together and had the most amazing time rebuilding a relationship. He came to where I lived and saw the clean and responsible life that I led, the hard work that I do to make a living. He started to realize that the life in the small town where he is was very lacking and that his family there is toxic. The entire summer he spent with me, he had 0 bouts with depression and actually stopped taking his medication for it. His choice. He started to understand that his perceived depression was an environmental thing. As a thank you for coming to see me, I canceled his flight home and gave him my old pickup truck as an early 18th birthday present, his first vehicle, and drove it back to his home state with him when the summer was over. He graduates from high school this year and is going to be moving here where I live to do college. Thank God I saved all those messages. Story 2. I've written about this before, but here goes. 4 students of mine won the first prize for a project they did, and we all got a free trip to London. We'd spent the day sightseeing and were exhausted, so we got an ice cream and sat on a bench in a park to relax. A couple of minutes later, I noticed this couple walk by slowly, staring at us. My spidey senses go mental. I do not like these people for some reason. She walks by and sits on the bench next to ours, and he sits on the bench across from hers. They aren't talking, just looking at each other. That is when I notice her reaching into her pockets. I jump up, grab my students, and run out of the park. My poor students are confused as hell and wondering what was wrong with me, when all of a sudden we hear screaming. Turns out she attacked a couple walking through the park, trying to rob them. It scares the ever-loving crap out of me, knowing had I not gotten my students out of there, we would have been attacked and robbed. Seems like they could only pull this off once before they were processed and jailed. Who just walks around the park like a maniac waiting to attack the next person they see. Story 3. I saved a receipt for a campus parking ticket I paid for during my freshman year of college. They do this thing where they double the ticket amount after a month of not paying. I paid for it the week I got it, stuffed the receipt in my bag, and forgot about it. Apparently, whoever was in charge of clearing me didn't. I was told I had an unpaid double parking ticket in my account after like 3 months when I tried to settle up tuition for the semester. Disputed that and wore a smug look on my face as I directly reached into my bag and pulled the receipt out to show them. I mean, otherwise, I would have had to essentially pay that ticket 3 times. Something tells me it's not the first time that's happened to students there.
Shh, here's a little secret for you. This video is sponsored by none other than me and my team at Rufus Rugs. We're the masters of creating custom, hand-tufted rugs that capture who you truly are. Whether you want to transform one of our intriguing thumbnails into a rug, for a friend, obviously, or you're craving a room makeover with awesome anime-inspired designs, we've got your back. Oh, and did I mention, each and every rug is skillfully handcrafted by me and my friends. No BS dropshipping gimmick here. You'll be blown away by your rug. Hit the first link in the description to learn more.
Story 4. Very minor, but once I was going out drinking in San Francisco with some friends, we loved going to this kind of dive bar in the Tenderloin, aka rough neighborhood. Anyway, I just bought a new car and was worried about parking it in the Tenderloin, while my friends assured me it'd probably be fine. As we parked in the street about 2 blocks from the bar, a homeless guy came up to me and said, "Man, you don't want to park the new stuff here. Somebody gonna smash them windows and steal your stereo, your sunglasses." In a whim, I just said, "Yeah, but we're kinda late. Want to keep an eye on it for me?" He paused for a second and goes, "Like a security guard?" "Yeah, man, I'll watch your car. You got $10? My friends, confused, started mumbling about just walking on, but I thought it couldn't hurt much. So I gave the guy $10. "Here's your $10. Keep an eye on it, man. If it's still in good shape when I get back, I'll give you another 10. Damn, $20? All I gotta do is sit here and make sure nobody smashes my window. There isn't anything inside anyway. It's new. I got you, man. I took a huge swig of this bottle of wild turkey. Anyways, the night progresses, we drink and have a good time, and now we're all properly buzzed except for my friend Mary, who was our DD. I gave her my keys and we started walking down the block. One by one, we noticed almost every parking spot has shattered glass next to it. Somebody went through the area and smashed each window to get into the cars. I got this sinking feeling in my stomach. I'm already mentally prepared to have to shell out a few $100 to replace the window of a car that wasn't even mine a week ago. But lo and behold, we get to the spot and my car is fine. The homeless guy's bundled up in a sleeping bag and he sees me and goes, "Hey, you back? You don't believe what stuff I did for you. Check this out." And he shows me this huge bruise on his face and pulls off his gloves and shows me his knuckles, which are scraped. "What happened?" I said. "Some idiot. Some tweaker cracker a-hole. He comes around here smashing windows and grabbing stuff. He gets to your car and I'm like, 'Yo, pass that one. That one's my responsibility.' And he turned around and pulled back on this big old brick he's got in his hand, and I jumped that idiot from behind and he hit with his damn brake, but I knocked him good, man. I changed that guy's mind, man. He was all strung out and he ran off down the block. My friends and I are staring at this guy incredulously. My car is fine, spotless. I reach into my pocket for $10, but I realize I don't have cash. "Dude, thanks so much. Give me a second, I gotta get your cash." I say as I walk into the liquor store in the corner to use the ATM. As I'm checking out, I realize they've got 750s of wild turkey in there for like $10. I brought one for him, I gave him the $10 and the bottle. "Thanks for keeping an eye on the car for me. You would have thought this dude just won the lottery." "Ooh, damn," he kept screaming. Then he kicked a pile of blankets and stuff on the side and I realized he had a girl there sleeping and he goes, "Wake up, look what I got." And she rubbed her eyes and looked confused at us and then at him, then at the bottle, then at us. Wordlessly, she reaches for the bottle, he hands it to her. He's still screaming and hollering like it's the best day of his life. Man, I don't know how they did it, but this story is heartwarming and heartbreaking at the same time. Story 5. I was undergoing pilot training and was pretty new to the whole thing, feeling the pressure to perform, etc. I walked out to pre-flight a plane for a solo flight. You do this completely alone. The instructor was back at flying school doing something else. After doing my walk around, it's time to check the oil. Cessna 172s have a dipstick that is attached to a cap that screws into the engine. You unscrew the cap and remove the dipstick along with it and check the oil. Except, after I unscrew the cap, there doesn't seem to be a dipstick attached to it. I have this thought. Well, the engine is still warm from the dudes who just flew before me, so they flew it like this. Maybe they had a separate dipstick. They must have checked the oil some other way. Then I have the, well, to be safe, I should actually pack this up and go ask someone at the flight school exactly how to check the oil in this case. Note, this takes quite a chunk of time out of my supposed flight and will cut my lesson for the day short by quite a margin, but I do it anyway. Long story short, info gleaned from subsequent investigations, the dipstick had broken off during the previous flight, which had landed just minutes before and had slid straight into the engine. Where the crankcase had been chopping away metal from the tip, the metal now circulating in the engine, the aircraft was grounded. It was extremely dangerous to fly and at massive cost had to be stripped down. The entire engine disassembled and they actually had to find every bit of metal missing from the dipstick and reassemble the dipstick before the plane could be reassembled and made flight worthy again. If in a moment of stupidity I'd taken off in that plane, I'd probably be gone. Story 6. I took one of those extra driving classes you always hear about to get a discount on your car insurance. I was in college and my premium was getting me. The one I signed up for was an 8-hour course that I knocked out in one day and the focus was maintaining control of your vehicle in bad weather. I took it over spring break, which is still a pretty snowy and icy time of year around here. The big test at the end to determine if you got the certificate was to pass the moose test. Though some places call it the elk test or the deer test. Either way, to pass the course, you had to successfully swerve around some cones on an icy road and region control of the car on the other side of the cones. So on my first day back at school from spring break, I'm driving myself and my roommate from the liquor store back to our dorm in some crappy conditions. I try to turn left into our parking lot and my car just slides straight past it and down a hill. I try to turn the wheel right to get into a different parking lot and get closer, but not quite where I needed to be. I'm heading straight for a telephone pole. My roommate was panicking, but I looked at it and I realized this was just a moose test. I managed to swerve around the pole, narrowly missing a wall of parked cars next to it, and regain control on the other side, finally bringing my car to a stop in an empty section of the parking lot. Then we walked back to the dorm and drank our faces off. So the moral of the story is, those extra driving classes you might take for the insurance discount may just save your life. Is it just me or does this sound like they just Tokyo drifted around a pole? Bad. If you can pass the moose test, leave a like in this video and subscribe to the channel. Story 7. I worked for a security company for a while where I drove around in their marked vehicle all night long. 12 to 14 hours. We had hit sheets where we documented when we stopped somewhere. I complied and saved all of my hit sheets just in case. Who knew when or why I would need them? My company got the original and I got the copy. One day I was accused of not going to accounts. I asked for the hit sheet, but they couldn't provide it to me. So at this point, I'm confused as to why they are saying I'm skipping places. So I asked them if I could grab my records. The boss looked confused and worried but said yes. I came back with a giant 3-ring binder with all copies of my hit sheets and showed them that I did indeed go to the accounts. My director said that the sheets didn't mean anything. I could mark whatever time I wanted to in the sheet. I replied, "If these don't mean anything, why are you making me fill them out every night?" He had no answer and said he would get back to me with possible disciplinary action. I walked to my squad called HR and told them what had just occurred. I then faxed over every hit sheet I had ever done from the time I had started with the company. I had 3 years' worth. Many weeks where I worked 7 days a week and double shifts on weekends. It amounted to just about 900 hit sheets that I manually had to fax over. I never heard from my director again on the subject. A year and a half after this, smartphones came about. My company said that they had GPS in the phone, and if we were speeding, they would get an alert and we would be writing up for it. I hated this. If I did the speed limit all night, I would never get to all of my accounts. I would go 5 to 10 over all night. So I did the speed limit until I figured out I could forward calls from my work phone to my personal phone. And I turned my work phone on, forwarded the calls, and put it on my desk drawer plugged in. One night I got a phone call from my director saying I was speeding. When asked where and how fast, he said 15 over on the highway in front of our office. That's when I knew there wasn't a GPS app that was tracking us. 1, I didn't have the phone on me. 2, that road was under heavy construction. And doing 10 miles per hour on that road during rush hour was going fast. I told him if he was going to write me up, I wanted to see the alert that he got and would like the app inspected to make sure it was accurate, and see the paperwork as well. Once again, I was never written up and soon left that company. Story 8. I bought a used Subaru Baja that was 5 years old at the time and had 75,000 miles for $12,000. The salesman offered an extended warranty that covered the engine for $2,500, which would last 3 years or 36,000 miles. That was kind of a lot. I usually don't buy those. I don't know what got into me that day, but I said sure. 1 month and 750 miles later, after an oil change at a mechanic shop, oil started shooting into the pistons. I'm not good with cars. Oil went where it wasn't supposed to go. Completely ruined the engine and turbo. The dealer had to keep it for 3 weeks. The warranty company flew someone out to inspect the car and eventually approved a replacement engine, turbo, and any other affected parts. Total repairs cost almost $11,000, and the warranty was then applied to all the new parts too. The car drove like it was brand new. Later discovered the car had 5 previous owners before me, but I couldn't find any accident or serious repair history. This is probably the only time buying an extended warranty on something actually worked out in my favor. Story 9. I was offered a job in Europe, where I was promised a bonus that was X% of my salary, paid twice a year. When the offer was sent, there was no mention of the bonus, and when I questioned why, I was told, "Don't worry, it's in this email with my official company signature." I put that one into the saved folder, just to be safe. Fast forward to moving, on the first payout period, I was told I needed to be with the company for 90 days first before a bonus would be paid. Okay, I was annoyed, but I guess that makes sense. The second bonus payment, they mentioned that the company hadn't had a great year and nobody would be getting bonuses. More annoyed, but if the company isn't doing great, what are you going to do? I should add this was in 2008. The following year rolls around and the company announces that things have really taken off and they will pay out the previous bonus period, in addition to the current bonus period. The only problem is that I literally handed in my resignation that day. I inquired to find if I'll be receiving a bonus from the previous bonus period, and they say, "Are you kidding? You just quit." I called a lawyer, I dig up the email from the start of this post, hand that over, and the lawyer says it's a slam dunk case. She goes after both bonus payments from the first year and both bonus payments from the current year, even though one of them hasn't happened yet. Company HQ calls me and tries to get me to drop it, and I refer them to my lawyer. A week later on my new job, the lawyer informed me that they paid all 4 bonus payments, and she also went after her own fees, so it cost me nothing. Glad I saved that email. Cover yourself and do not let others push you around. If I've learned something from Reddit, it's cover yourself, lawyer up, and hitting the gym never hurt anybody. Story 10. A tropical storm was blowing through my city a few months ago, and we were projected to get some wind gusts and significant rain. Because our parking lot isn't large enough for all staff and our clients, a lot of us have to park on the street, which is lined with large old trees. As I rolled up on the morning we were due to get the storm, I parked in my usual spot down the block. Before I shut the car off, though, I noticed that this particular spot was located directly across the street from one of the largest trees in the block. Thinking, you know what, just to be safe, I put the car in reverse and backed up about 10 feet, safely out of the direct line of fire from any trees. In the middle of that afternoon, in the midst of howling wind and driving rain, we heard a huge thud down the street. Went to investigate, and that same tree I'd been parked across the street from fell across the road and missed my car by about 8 feet. At that moment, I was glad that I decided to play it safe. The car parked on the other side of the street, directly across from where it had initially been, was absolutely destroyed. Crushed roof, windows were blown out, just pulverized. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you made it this far, I'm sure you'll also enjoy what's the most insane coincidence you've experienced. Story 4 was unreal. See you in that video.